Welcome to tonight's webinar, Help Protect Montessori Early Education with Christine Lowry and Sharon DeMoore. So I would like to welcome everyone, and if you have Christine and Sharon will answer your questions. And if you have any other questions, you can always go to montessoriforward.org. So right now I'm going to introduce Christine Lowry.
Welcome, and thank you for your participation. We are excited to have so many of you from across the country and want to especially welcome our fellow Montessori educators from around the world. We would like to thank AMS for sponsoring this webinar so that you can learn more about QRIS. We offer special thanks to the AMS Director of Accreditation, Sarah Wilson, for helping with the graphic design of our PowerPoint. If at any point during the webinar you have questions, please type them in and we will take several breaks to answer those questions for you. I'm Christine Lowry and I am the Technical Assistant for the QRIS Special Project currently being sponsored by AMS. I am a member of the Montessori Public Policy Committee. I hold a Montessori Early Childhood Education credential. I'm currently the Educational and Instructional Program Director of a newly opened Montessori charter school. Our co-leader for this webinar is Dr. Sharon DeMoore.
Thank you, Christine, for those expressions of gratitude to all that made this QRIS webinar possible tonight. Again, I'd love to welcome all of you. I'm Sharon DeMoore. I am a member with Christine of the QRIS Subcommittee, a committee of the Montessori Policy Committee, which I co-chair with Jenny Riga from South Carolina. I serve as a past AMS board member and a former AMS School Accreditation Commissioner. I have a 3 to 6 AMS credential. Currently, I teach at DePaul University in Chicago in educational leadership. I also work as a part-time executive director of the Association of Illinois Montessori Schools, which you will hear me refer to as AIMS. I also work as a coordinator for the administrators program at Seton Montessori Institute, and I live here in Chicago. Let's get started with our presentation tonight.
What is QRIS? QRIS is Quality Rating and Improvement System, and it is currently impacting early childhood education in all but one state. Although the impetus for these state systems comes from the national level, each state is responsible for creating its own QRIS. Some states are in the design pilot stage, while others are in full implementation. States which have received Race to the Top Early Learning Challenge grants are mandated by the U.S. Department of Education to create and implement a QRIS. Some of these recipients are in the process of reassessing and revising their existing QRIS. How does QRIS impact Montessori programs? And why do we need to care? These systems assess program environment, early childhood education standards, teacher qualifications, school management, the level of parent involvement in a program, and the program's ability to provide for children with special needs. Almost every state is using assessment tools which yield higher scores for play-based child care programs than high-quality Montessori early education programs and schools. Public and private early childhood programs and before and after school programs are given a rating, usually in the form of a ranked level or stars, and they are being actively marketed to parents making education and/or child care choices for their family. These ratings can influence public policymakers and contribute to government funding decisions, and they can affect your enrollment and revenue stream. In many states, these ratings are tied to licensing requirements. Level 1 of QRIS is met by meeting the standards for receiving a daycare license. From there, programs can choose to participate in the QRIS requirements for higher levels. These higher levels, though currently voluntary in most states, can be used to assess how well your program is preparing children for entrance into elementary school, public elementary school. Your state licensing agency can use them as a component of your school improvement plan and as a part of your school professional development plan. At this point, we will stop to answer some of your questions.
Hello, this is Sharon again, and I'm looking at the questions. We have some really good questions coming in. Let me read them for you. Number one, do you think public education will ever embrace Montessori's teacher training and/or mastery learning concepts? What do you think? This is a great question. Absolutely. We have with us tonight numerous public educators. We have Christine Lowry, who is my co-presenter tonight in her new leadership role at a North Carolina charter school. We have the new Center for Montessori in the public sector. We have MACD, the Montessori Accreditation Council for Teacher Education, which is recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. And please review the first chapter of Angeline Lillard's book, Science Behind the Genius, and how she tells the story about the issues with school reform initiatives not working today because they don't pay attention to good teaching and learning practices. Montessori does, and we truly want public education to value the Montessori training programs that we have and to really appreciate best practices found in Montessori education. We want to pride ourselves and follow the models that we're seeing in South Carolina, whose state coalition includes numerous private and public school affiliation. Here's a second question before we continue. Can we get printouts of this slideshow? The answer is yes. Printouts will be available on the AMS website. Okay, Christine, let's continue with the presentation.
Great. Thank you, Sharon. So, what are these rating tools and why can they be problematic for a high-quality Montessori program? Next. Thank you. The Early Childhood Environment Rating Scale Revised, or the QRIS, is the most often used tool and is used around the world to assess early childhood programs. The CLASS, or the Classroom Assessment Scoring System, is used to rate teacher and child interaction on specific criteria. Components include emotional support, classroom organization, and instructional support. And each component has many specific items that must be present in a classroom. And finally, some states are using the Program Administration Scale, or PASS, to rate center operations, human resources, and fiscal management. They also look at staff qualifications, salary being paid to staff, and the benefits that those staff are receiving. The QRIS is used to assess the environment, including the space, furnishings, materials, activities, and curriculum on specific criteria. Staff qualifications, the education and experience levels of your staff, and alignment with the state requirements and state registry if you have them. The education of the administrative staff and the management components of the center or school. The specific areas of parent involvement and ways that parents can be involved, and the inclusion of special needs children, including their evaluation, consultation for the teachers, and service delivery. So why would a high-quality Montessori school score low? The QRIS Revised has specific criteria that are used to assess each component. The environment standards include areas and criteria such as the dress-up area, and the qualifications for scoring points there are very specific. This must provide children the opportunity to explore gender roles, explore adult professions, such as wearing a fireman's helmet, and to engage in pretend play, such as pretending to be a princess or a cartoon character. The dramatic play area must provide children the opportunity to make believe in free, unguided play. Silver polishing, for example, is specifically mentioned as not qualifying in this category because a child is taught the specific steps for completing the activity rather than freely exploring the materials and the activity. There are specifics regarding the numbers of a variety of materials and how they are to be used, such as numbers of soft plush toys per child, accessories such as miniature animals, people, or vehicles to be used in the block area, and the specific numbers of puzzles, books, and art supplies. Free play, sand, and water activities are required, and types of visual displays in the classroom, including children's artwork, are specified and scored. The ECHRS revised and child care licensing departments have requirements for early childhood lead and assistant teachers. Although these requirements are often much less rigorous than those to earn a Montessori Early Childhood credential, the Montessori credential is not always recognized as meeting the state standard. Oftentimes, professional development specific to Montessori Early Childhood education are also not accepted as meeting the annual hours required by licensing. Some specific items from the class that could well be problematic for a Montessori classroom include the teacher's interaction with pretend play, the requirement that a teacher always eat with the children, even an individual snack, the overt praising and rewarding giving to children and how many points are earned for doing that, and the inclusion of appropriate physical contact, such as hugging on a regular basis. We will now take a little bit more time and let Sharon look at your questions.
Okay, here's a question. You said that the QRIS assessments are biased favorably toward play-based programs. Can you direct me to some research that validates this? Great question, because I am looking right now at a printout from the Frank Porter Graham Child Development Institute, an organization affiliated with the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, about environmental rating scales. And in this document, you will see reference to the developers, the authors concerned about Montessori's lack of use of dramatic play and the possibility of resulting in lower ratings on QRIS. We will also try and post that link for you on our MontessoriForward.org website, which we will be talking about a little bit later in the presentation. Okay, here's another good question. What is AMS doing to give input into the QRIS standards? I don't even know where to start with this. AMS is so supportive in our work tonight. I will also say that I am a member of the advocacy work group, which is an unprecedented collaboration between AMS and AMI to establish state Montessori coalitions and a national database of state and regional Montessori organizations. I'm also really proud to say that Virginia McHugh Goodwin, the executive director of AMI, and I presented on the state coalition work at the International Congress in Portland to 68 attendees. And in the last year, both Virginia and I have presented at the AMS and the AMI conferences respectfully about the development of the state coalitions. I'm also very pleased to say that AMI and AMS are co-funded part-time staff positions for policy management, coaching, and coordination with their respective board leadership and support. This is a very, very exciting time. We also have seen through the Montessori Leaders Collaborative over the past 2 years the convening of our national Montessori leaders from AMI, AMS, MACD, MEPI, NAMTA, and the International Montessori Foundation and IMC. And if I've left anyone out, I truly apologize. And also the Montessori Policy Committee under the purview of AMS, which Christine and I are members of, are including organizations such as AMI and ACTI. The QRIS committee is a subcommittee of this committee. We thank AMI for sponsoring webinars for the State Coalition in conjunction with AMS. We thank AMS for sponsoring the webinar for QRIS tonight in conjunction with AMI. We thank AMS and AMI's support of the QRIS subcommittee work and launching of MontessoriForward.org website, which you will hear about tonight, sponsored by Maryland and Illinois. We are most certainly moving toward one voice for policy and advocacy, and we thank AMS tonight for that opportunity. Okay, Christine.
Okay, so what is the rating process? First, it's important to say that QRIS is generally within the Office of Early Childhood Education and Child Care. It has a variety of names, but it will be somewhere usually in Department of Human Resources, occasionally State Department of Education, but these rating systems are created, designed, and tested within a state agency. Oftentimes the actual rating will be contracted out to an agency, such as in Colorado, that uses an organization called QualStar to actually go out and do their ratings. So the raters are actually employees of the state or the contracted agency. If your program or school has a full-day component, you are required to meet licensing standards for health, safety, staff numbers and qualifications, ratios of teacher to student, and maybe some classroom materials. Usually, earning a license will place your program at level 1 on the state QRIS. To participate in the higher levels of QRIS, which vary anywhere from a total of 3 levels to 6 levels, you may be required to complete a self-assessment or portfolio of your program using your state's QRIS template for this assessment. Your teachers may be required to complete professional development developed by the State Office of Early Learning and Care to maintain a higher rating. To continue through the levels of QRIS, a specially trained and qualified ACRS-R or class rater will observe your program to determine the score using the specific criteria for each instrument. These raters are supposed to be highly trained. There are specific criteria for them to be able to go out and rate a school. There are requirements for how long they spend in a representative sample of classrooms in your school. But although there is a highly prescribed method and criteria for assessing a classroom using these tools, most of these raters have little, if any, knowledge about how to accurately assess a Montessori environment. So again, why should we care about QRIS? There are specific threats to high-quality Montessori. Although the QRIS process is currently required in only a handful of states, the national trend is towards more and more standardized assessments of early childhood programs, such as we have in elementary and secondary and high school programs. Billions of dollars are being granted to states to develop and market these systems. As increased funding for universal pre-K and early childhood education are approved, QRIS will very likely become mandatory. As Montessori classrooms are rated using these tools, which do favor play-based programs, the resulting low levels could lead to programs putting less emphasis on best practices and compromise the standards and qualities that benefit children in order to attain a higher rating. As poor ratings lead to a misperception by parents and others of the benefits of high-quality Montessori programs, enrollment could decrease. Fewer programs could be available for families, and funding and public policy could favor those programs which rate higher. Poor ratings could lead, as I said, to fewer high-quality Montessori programs for children and their families, and poor ratings could result in reduced government funding for programs serving high-need populations and the granting of current and future universal pre-K monies for both public and private Montessori schools. In a discussion with a principal of a Montessori charter school in Colorado, which has a primary component as well as the elementary and middle school component, his feeling was that as money is filtered down to the states at a local level, rather than recreating programs or designing new programs, the federal money will go to programs that are currently in existence that are receiving high levels of ratings. So that's another reason that we want to be attentive to this. So how can we work with QRIS to minimize the negative impact and actually use it to demonstrate the quality and benefit that authentic Montessori or early childhood education can offer? There are opportunities for us as the national and local conversation turns to what works best for young children. As a Montessori community, at every level, we can look at what is best Montessori practice. What does quality Montessori mean? More and more research indicates that when we use best practice, there are clear benefits for children and families. We can begin to agree on quality standards and best practice. We can support and engage in research that looks at outcomes, benefits, and long-term results of these best practices. We can verify in terms understood across the academic spectrum what we know to be true about Montessori. We can begin to advocate for recognition of high-quality Montessori education, the expertise of our teachers, the high standards of our teacher education programs, the benefits and values of our curriculum and our philosophy that focuses that curriculum, and we can work to increase public awareness through the education of parents, state departments and agencies, legislators, policymakers, the media, and the public at large. The coming together of national Montessori organizations gives us the strength to speak with one voice as we increase public awareness. So we'll stop again for some of your questions and excellent answers from Sharon.
Here's another excellent question. Has AMS looked at Pamela Riggs' Montessori rating scales, and if so, are they useful? This is a great question, but it's not as easily answered as it sounds. My analogy is standardized testing. The federal intervention, unfortunately, results in accountability for the states and a need to identify quick assessments. Instruments like the Eckerts and the CLAS are very well known nationally. They're respected in early childhood education, and they have established validity and reliability. Creating other Montessori-friendly instruments will take time and resources. But once you are introduced to MontessoriForward.org, please read Georgia's story under the blog. This is a group of progressive, assertive Montessorians who volunteered to test the Eckerts in their state, and they secured an opportunity to discuss where misalignment occurred. As a result, Montessorians in Georgia will serve as school validators and will interpret the assessments for their Montessori classrooms. And the state daycare license director even became an advocate for Montessori as a result of this process. Change can happen, but we hear it's about relationships, and it's about participation, and it's about knowledge. Christine will say, and I agree, that engaging and becoming involved in your state's process of QRIS can result in tweaking and modifying language in the use and interpretation of these assessments. Being proactive with these assessments may be better for your state and your Montessori coalition than waiting for the development of new Montessori-friendly tools. Here's another question. In our country, we have not found a systematic bias toward any one type of pedagogy using the usual QRIS assessment tools. Our assessors and raters are well versed in the tools and know what to do and what to look for regardless of type of pedagogy. Can you comment? I'm not sure what country you're from, but I'm guessing that you're not from the United States. Please share with us your experiences. It's so difficult to share all this in emails. So again, when Christine starts talking about MontessoriForward.org and the website and the blogs and the opportunities for you to write up case studies and for us to learn from you, it's just so important that we do. But thank you for that question. Christine, if you'd like to continue the presentation, please.
Unmuted.
Okay, next slide. So what is happening at the national level? Sharon has talked a bit about this. The coming together of Montessori organizations such as AMI and AMS are resulting in support of grassroots and state-level advocacy. State advocacy coalitions have been formed and are connecting with Montessori state organizations. Working together, these groups are talking with state agencies and forming the relationships that make it possible to have positive, respectful conversations to see our common goals. We can, as Montessori educators, work beyond the classroom and educate beyond the child. Our national leaders are working with MACT to share the standards and competencies of the Montessori educated teacher with the U.S. Department of Education. And those state agencies which will recognize this credential as one of the finest indicators of high-quality early childhood teachers. And that certainly would be a goal. AMS is reviewing its accreditation standards and process for recognizing schools of excellence and aligning these with state requirements for the recognition of this national accreditation. There are states which currently exempt programs with national accreditation from QRIS and some which grant points towards a higher level for accreditation. But maybe most importantly, we are coming together as a greater community of Montessori educators who can communicate with one voice. And your participation in this webinar just shows how much power and how much support we can have and how we can work together. Okay. The Montessori Public Policy Committee has as one of its involvements the support of the QRIS subcommittee. And this committee has worked in a variety of areas. One has been gathering of information and collecting a database with a national survey that has been shared with state organizations and state coalitions to gather information about QRIS in each of those states. We have looked at information from those states to get a sense of what policy precedents may already exist and which could serve as templates for other state Montessori groups, including, as Sharon mentioned in Georgia, revision of the assessment tools to be more Montessori friendly, and to talk with state people about training of raters so that they can understand Montessori classrooms and potentially rate a variety of things that aren't necessarily specifically mentioned in the rating tool but serve the same goal and the same purpose. The QRIS subcommittee has provided consultation and support for state groups as they advocate at the state level. And we've communicated with the entire Montessori community regarding the potential impacts of QRIS, such as tonight. The newly renamed Montessori Research Committee is working to collaborate and share information and to determine the kinds of research needed and funding sources that will be needed to complete it. It's important that all of this research come together, that we be aware of what one another is working on so that we can contribute to one body of information. There are several state Montessori groups that are actively advocating in support of high-quality Montessori programs, and their work is making a difference. Can you advance the slide, please? Thank you. Two of these states currently are Maryland and Michigan. The Maryland Montessori group has established relationships with their state QRIS representatives, and through these relationships have accomplished the recognition of the Montessori Early Childhood Education credential, The Montessori ECE curriculum has recently been approved. They've received exemptions on group size and ratio so that they can have the group size and the reduction of adults that we like to see in a Montessori classroom. And they're currently working to look at how they might revise the QRIS so that it's more Montessori friendly, and how they can train raters to understand what they're seeing in a Montessori classroom and how it counts to meet the same goals that developers of QRIS had. In Michigan, there's a very active Montessori group. The Montessori State Organization and the Montessori Coalition have come together to form one group with one strong voice. And so far, they've completed a census of all of the Montessori programs in their state. They have come together to write a definition of what they consider to be authentic Montessori practice, and they've been working on aligning Montessori curriculum with the state standards. They, too, have established an ongoing relationship and conversation with the state QRIS people, and they've begun work on a modified rating tool. The Montessori Early Childhood Education credential is now recognized, and they have joined with other ECE programs to discuss accurate program assessment with state legislatures. This gives them a huge voice as they speak not only for the Montessori community, but they also speak for people from Waldorf programs, from Reggio Emilia programs, any kind of program that has a specific curriculum and philosophy aligned with it. And I think this has given them great power as they have gone to their state legislators and said, we need a QRIS in the state of Michigan that honors and respects a variety of high-quality early childhood education programs. These are just two of the states that are working to make their voice heard to advocate for Montessori. And on our new website that Sharon has alluded to, there we will continue to add updates of what other states are doing. So, how can you make a difference? First, you can join your state or regional Montessori organization or coalition. We do have a listing of those contacts on our website that we'll be showing you in a moment. Feel free to email those contacts. I am sure that they would love to have people who are interested and involved and want to help. There's much that needs to be done. You can learn about QRIS in your state. You can start with Office of Early Childhood Education and Care in your state. You can just Google QRIS in your state and find out who the people are in this office who are doing QRIS and find out who you might be able to have a conversation with. You can connect with Montessori educators across the country and now apparently the world at our new website for Montessori advocacy. The URL is listed here. This is a website that is being sponsored by the Montessori group in Illinois, Ames, and the Montessori Advocacy Group in Maryland, and we thank them for their sponsorship of this website. We are hoping that this website is a spot where you can get answers to your questions, where you can find out what other states have done and how you might do the same thing in your state, to learn how to advocate in a positive and a productive way, and how you can join in to make a difference for Montessori education. The time is now. In many states, QRIS is still being developed or revised. This is a workable time to have an impact, not just on QRIS, but on the increasing awareness of the values and benefits of high-quality Montessori education. Work with your fellow Montessori educators. Together, determine the needs in your state. Design an advocacy plan, and that can be as simple as looking at whether the tasks that need to be done and assigning them to a member of your group. As I said, you can find assistance at our new website, montessoriforward.org, and you can contact the AMI public policy consultant who will soon be on board to assist with public policy. You can work to increase awareness of the values and benefits of high-quality Montessori in your community. Every time you do a parent education night, you're advocating for Montessori education. So please use these resources to come together and give us one strong voice as we move Montessori forward. Thank you. We will try to answer some of your questions now. And if we don't get to your question, please feel free to contact us at montessoriforward.org. You can contact me at christine@ams.org, or you can contact Sharon at her DePaul email address. Now, Sharon is going to, I'm going to turn it over to Sharon to answer some more of your questions.
Okay, we do have some comments coming in, and here's one from Georgia. Hope Georgia doesn't mind. We are applauding their effort and hopefully telling their story correctly. The comment is, it's important to note that in Georgia we found that much of the polarizing issues with QRIS were a matter of vocabulary, which when discussed with our state leaders were easily. Dramatic play is a good example. In Georgia, assessors have been retrained to count aprons, chef hats, and cooking as satisfying the dramatic play requirement. As in our schools, solutions are found in relationships, in this case with others committed to the welfare of children. Thank you, Georgia. Here's another comment. I'm involved in a parent group who's applying for a charter Montessori school in May. This is very helpful and a relief to know this help and support. As a group, we very much advocate for Montessori in the public sector. Thank you. I will be in touch with you. Thank you for those great comments. Let's go back to a few more questions. Here's one. Is anyone engaged with NACI and other powerful groups to engage their support for diverse approaches rather than a one-way agenda? My answer here is absolutely. Virginia Goodwin-McHugh and Rich Unger both serve on the National CAPE Board. That is the Council for American Private Education. Also, we are finding much interest in QRIS and what we are doing with the National Association of Independent Schools. Colorado Independent Schools are a strong partner in advocating for Montessori curriculum and credentials. Sarah Wilson, the AMS Accreditation Director, is in communication about accreditation alignment with QRIS with numerous state, cooperative, and umbrella accrediting organizations. We are partnering with MACD and many conversations with MACD. Again, they are recognized by the U.S. Department of Education, and they will help us in terms of gaining recognition of Montessori credentials. Christine and I were so fortunate to be invited a couple of weeks ago to a forum called the Montessori State Relations Forum, hosted by MACD. And yes, there were other than Montessorians there. We had university faculty members who were not Montessori. And we also had fabulous conversations about our need for non-Montessorians involved in research and conducting large-scale studies on Montessori outcomes. We are indeed in conversation and understand that this cannot be a one-way agenda. Next question. Will accredited schools with full-day programs for 3 to 6-year-olds be subject to these ratings? The answer is it really varies from state to state. For example, the draft of the Colorado's Next Generation QRIS includes recognition of AMS accreditation for higher ratings. With Illinois, which is called the Accelerate QRIS, we are working in Illinois very closely with the AMS office, with Sarah Wilson, as I mentioned before. The application asks for the crosswalk to applicable early learning state standards and asks for evidence based on the rigor of the accreditation program, such as inter-rater reliability. We are talking with the research committee and other researchers about such studies to support the accreditation process. We hope that we can establish some precedents with states like Colorado that we will be able to share with other states and policymakers as we continue to think about how to support and validate our accreditation programs. Another question, oh, this is a good one. Have you considered offering a written response that schools could hand out to parents to explain our approach, its parallels and diversions from QRIS? Something simple to give schools the language to use in their conversations with stakeholders. This really is a good idea, guys. and most certainly I will take it back to the QRIS subcommittee. But I do have to tell you that the QRIS looks very different from state to state, even though there are many commonalities. And again, it's a federal initiative, but it's delegated to the states. Let me just tell you a little bit about what I sent to my membership in Illinois this last week. I'm starting with the heads of schools, the principals, telling them that I want them to know what is happening, explaining QRIS in a paragraph or two. I give them the overview, I name the state program, I mentioned it's called Accelerate, and that they're going to be using experts in the past for childhood program evaluation. I also talk a little bit about the political and regulatory infrastructure in Illinois for the administration of this to happen, and how important it is if we as heads of schools, principals, Montessori leaders become knowledgeable and potentially trained in the process. In my letter, I provided links to the QRIS introduction provided by the state, the links to descriptions, and the links to tools. I then provided links to the training registration. I also indicated that we don't know exactly who will be impacted first, but we have to be proactive and get as many of us trained and knowledgeable as possible. I'm hoping that we, like as in other states, can become validators. I also talked about the national support and our establishment of a new state coalition. I will provide a copy of this letter on the MontessoriForward.org website. And again, I will take your recommendation back to the QRIS subcommittee. Thank you. Okay, I'm still looking through these questions. Okay, this is a really good question, and I'm glad you asked it. If AMS and AMI collaborate, will AMI schools be allowed to hire AMS credentialed candidates? This collaboration between AMI and AMS on policy and advocacy is something I didn't dream that would be part of my work. I am so pleased beyond words that this is happening. And I really do think it is a significant beginning to dialoguing about establishing trust and finding ways to provide evidence of high-quality Montessori schools and teacher training programs. I do see another comment coming in from Sarah Wilson, and she reminds us to tell everyone tonight that the webinar is being recorded and will be posted on AMS and the Montessori Forward website. Christine, do you have anything to add to any of those answers that I've given? There are a few more questions, but I think we'll end up probably posting them on our website.
We will be writing up your questions in Sharon's incredible answers, and those will be on MontessoriForward.org. We currently have a general Q&A on QRIS. And some information about how to start a state group, how to connect with a group that's already in existence, how to begin your advocacy work. There are several resources on the website right now that we hope will be of value to you. But this is your website. We really want to follow the needs of the Montessori advocates. So please let us know either through email or by commenting on a blog post what else you want, what do you need, and how can we help you. The goal of the QRIS subcommittee is to be there for Montessori educators across the country, and it sounds like those of you from around the world could maybe help us. So I will ask again, as Sharon has asked, to please contact us through the website and let us know how things are going in your country and how they got to be that way. I think that would be a wonderful resource for us. So I don't have anything else to add except thank you very much. We look forward to working with you, and good luck with your advocacy. Thank you.
So I want to thank everyone for attending tonight's webinar, and I also encourage you to please check out MontessoriForward.org. And if you have any questions for Sharon or Christine, you can always let them know at Montessori Forward. So I'd like to thank everyone and have a good evening.